This is an overview of some of the key ideas about data and variables in Java. A variable is a name for a location in the computer's memory. Variables can hold different kinds of information. To declare a variable, you specify its type and name. For example, you might declare an integer variable named count or a string variable named firstName. Java is a strongly typed language. This means that every variable has a fixed type that will not change. You specify this type when you declare your variable. The type dictates what you're allowed to do with that variable. In Java, the answer to many questions that come up is because of the variable's type. The declaration has two parts, the type and the name. In general, it's important to follow naming and other coding conventions. This makes your code more readable and easier to maintain, and it's also an indicator of the quality of your code. In Java, variables should start with a lowercase letter and then capitalize each subsequent word in the name. This is called lower camel case. Do not use underscores in variable names. Variable names should be descriptive. Avoid using one letter or abbreviated names. It's not uncommon in Java to see long descriptive names. Variables must be initialized before you can use them. Initializing means giving a variable an initial value. You can declare and initialize in one statement or in separate statements, depending on what you need for your program. An assignment statement changes the value of a variable. Assignment statements use the equal sign. When evaluating an assignment statement, we always evaluate the right side first, and only after the right side is evaluated do we assign that value to the variable on the left. In Java, variables can be a primitive type or an object. Java has 8 primitive types. These include types for whole numbers without a decimal, byte, short, int, and long, and types for floating point numbers or numbers with a decimal, float and double, a type for characters, meaning a single letter, digit, or symbol, char, and a Boolean type, which can store the values of true and false. The numeric primitive types each has a different range of values that it can store. They're listed here in each group from smallest to largest. A primitive variable stores one small, simple piece of data of one of these types. An object variable, or you might hear it called an object reference, is different from a primitive variable. Primitives are a single piece of data like a number or a letter. Objects are larger and more complex, so you cannot store them in the one single memory space of the variable. Instead, the variable holds a memory address to a different part of memory where the data is stored. You might hear this called a reference or a pointer, and it's often represented as an arrow. This difference between how primitives and objects are stored in memory is an important concept in Java. It will come up in lots of different places as you start to write more advanced programs. Constants are similar to variables. They have a type and a name. But the value of a constant cannot change after it's been initialized. You cannot reassign the value. You declare a constant using the keyword final. You'll also often see constants declared as public and static, but we'll talk about these keywords elsewhere. Using constants in place of numeric or string values, called literals, is good practice. Constants can be used for things like minimums, maximums, default values, real-world values, and more. Constants can make your code more readable and maintainable. And using constants also puts a compile time check to make sure you don't inadvertently change a value that shouldn't be changed. Constants follow a different naming convention than variables. Constants should be in all capital letters with words separated with underscores. A frequently used type of variable is string. A string value, or string literal, is a sequence of characters surrounded by double quotes. String is a class in Java, and that means that string variables are objects. So the value of a string variable is a memory address of somewhere else in memory where the data for that string is stored. Strings are a special kind of object that's called immutable. We'll learn more about strings elsewhere. Those are some basic ideas about data and variables in Java. Happy coding!